is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Hi, welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and you know that I am dedicating this show to bring in people who will challenge you to think differently so that you can take back time. And today is no exception. I have Steve Sims with me, and Steve, he knows how to make things happen, and he's got a really simple formula of 2 questions to ask yourself in order to make things happen. A little bit about Steve is he's somebody who's worked with Sir Elton John and Elon Musk, among many other celebrities. He sent people to see the wreck of the Titanic, and he's closed museums in Florence for a private dinner party. And then he had Andre Bocelli serenade them while they ate pasta. So he makes things happen. He's been quoted as the real-life Wizard of Oz by Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. And Steve Sims is also the best-selling author of Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen. He's a sought-after consultant and speaker and speaks at a variety of networks, groups, associations, as well as the Pentagon and Harvard. So without further ado, Steve, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, today I'm excited about the conversation because we're going to be talking about the ROI of communication. And I think now more than ever, communication is so important, you know, and it always was. I mean, I think that it's the key thing when we talk about productivity and saving time. It's the biggest area, right? That when it doesn't run well, that we're not productive and lose trust in one another. It's huge to be focused on proper communication.
I think it's like having a car with the wheels off. If you can't communicate, you could be an engineer with a great idea, but you can't communicate it. You could be a guy with a car trying to sell it and you can't sell it. You can be a guy trying to chat up a girl at a bar and you can't seal the deal. Without our ability to communicate between 2 human beings, and it's still the only thing that AI can't do and you can't download an app for.
Absolutely. That is so true. And it's the most important. We put our focus everywhere else. Why do we do that?
We're lazy. I hate to say this, but we're cheaters. As human beings and as exaggerated human beings, i.e. entrepreneurs, we look for the hack, the trick, the shortcut, the secret door. And what's been given to us, we've grabbed eagerly and hungrily. And we're all this word that's now in everyone's dictionary, which is social distancing. We started that 15 years ago with a company called Friendster and MySpace. Without realizing it, we were pushing ourselves away from people and increasing our disability to be able to communicate with each other. And we rely on the fact that we're going to go on Twitter, we're going to go on there that, oh, I had a great birthday, and it's like shouting down a corridor. You hope someone opens up the door and goes, really? But otherwise, you're doing lazy banner advertising. And I think it's hurting us. And there's always a silver lining. The silver lining I see in this recent coronavirus is how upset we've been not to be able to communicate with people. And I think there's going to be a surge when we're allowed out to play with each other, and everyone's going to want to go, hey, let's get together. Let's never miss this moment again. Let's never wait. You're going to get all of that. Now, sadly, it's going to die off again because we have short attention span. But I believe that the coronavirus is going to be very good in impacting us into the power and necessity for 2 people to communicate, whether it be business person to business person, me to my staff, you to your kids, whatever it is. I think people are realizing, hey, I do need this communication thing.
Well, I have a couple things that discuss and say about that. Like, first, I see for myself, right? I see more communication and more time, right, spent for that at home. And so that's definitely a positive thing. Some of the challenges, right, with anything, we have to set boundaries and we have to look at what's productive and what's unproductive. There's a lot of communication that goes on social media and the news. But like you said, it's not real communication. But people are still so caught up in that. They're at home, but they're still caught up even more so, spending more time on social media, more time with news that, fills our head with negativity. What about that side of things? Like there's the positive end and of connection and communication, but then there's the kind of communication that disconnects. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, totally. If you were starving and someone offered you a plate of food, would you ask what it was?
No, I would eat it. You're right.
and that's what we're in now. We're in a situation where we're suddenly at home. Someone said to me the other day, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. He said to me, I miss the bagel man. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't know the guy's name. I've made it up. He said, but every couple of mornings I see my bagel man. We tell a joke, we laugh, we smile. He's just jolly old. I miss my bagel man. The bottom line of it is that we need that communication. We've now had it removed from us. And so everyone's just jumped on a plate of food that they don't understand. Social media, I hate to say this, isn't social. It's a platform. It's a tool, and it's to be used appropriately. People go on to Facebook to connect with their family. They will avoid a phone. They will reach out and they will set up a friend group and they will go, I've got a friend group so me and my family can stay in touch. Bollocks. Pick up the phone, FaceTime them, Zoom them. My wife opened up, as soon as this happened, she opened up a Zoom account. Now, she uses FaceTime, but now she can get her brother and sister all on Zoom, and they have a conversation on a Saturday morning over breakfast. Now, the beautiful thing is, there in England, she's never had breakfast with her family, or she hasn't had breakfast with her family for years, but she's using Zoom as a tool to accomplish that. Social, people are still going, I need to communicate, let me yell down that corridor more. And that's where they're getting it wrong. You've always got to ask yourself, what's the point? That's the thing we've got to do in, I believe, everything. The first thing I do when I coach my clients is I actually teach them to be selfish. And I say to them, what's the point? How does this benefit you first? How does it benefit someone second? A lot of people are well focused on the benefit in them by saying, I want to be current. I want to be relevant. I need more views. I need more likes. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've never been able to pay my mortgage with Facebook likes. So until I can, it's a waste of time to me. The point is, you want to be able to communicate with another individual. And the funny thing is, 9 times out of 10, social platforms are the place for that to not happen. Phone call, Zoom, right. FaceTime, all those other things. But people are desperate and they're trying to work with what they've already got their tips. They're used to going through Facebook and cyber stalking people in their bikinis on their holidays. They're used to doing that. So it's a comfort zone for them to go back there. And basically, let's be serious, Facebook is a great big voyeur platform. It's where we can all stare at other people and then not have to be part of the conversation. And now we're trying to use it as the conversation. And I think that's where we're going wrong.
Absolutely. I agree. I've always said that what we're doing with the likes and all of that is we're trying to be significant, and the louder we yell, the more significant we think we are. But it's really, we're seeking connection, and we're just doing it in the wrong place and the wrong ways.
Yeah, it's got to be, again, you've got to use it as a tool. Like we have a Facebook group, there's no charge. It's called an Entrepreneur's Advantage. And we went on there and we said, look, I don't know about you guys, but on a Friday night, I always used to like getting together with a bunch of people and drinking an old fashioned. So I can't do that. And I'm like, Billy No Mates drinking on my own. Would you like to drink an old fashioned with me on Friday night? I used my social platform to announce what I wanted to do and then invite people to come into it. And when they came into it, it wasn't a Facebook Live, which, let's be honest, is just you.
Right.
I said, let's do a Zoom. Would anyone be okay with that? We'll all be able to see each other. We'll all be able to converse. I'll get a big screen. And we had some like 60-something people join us on a Friday night.
That's awesome.
For just me in my garden with an old-fashioned, telling as many coronavirus jokes as possible. And seriously, they're bad. The worse, the more kind of like dad joke you could come up with, the better. But I haven't heard many funny ones yet, but that's what we did. But we used the social aspect as a tool to invite them to the visual aspect, which was Zoom.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So let's go back to the idea of communication as an ROI. So what do you mean by that? Like how does one, I get it. So what's the point, right? So what's the point with the ROI?
Exactly. I hate networking events because it's a cluster show of how many business cards. It's a case of, if you've ever seen those playground things where someone jumps into a glass booth and then has to grab as many tickets as possible, and you've seen that also when it's dollar bills and someone has to grab as many as they can in like 1 minute, that's like people in a networking event. How many business cards can I get? I don't want to have anybody. In fact, I don't carry business cards. I will never take your business card. I always say, well, look, let me take a photograph, or better still, let me get your cell phone and I'll text you my details.
Yeah.
And I always do that. But I want to have a conversation. Now, if the conversation's of no benefit to me, now let's get really selfish here. Every conversation, as far as I'm concerned, I'm 53 years old, I'm not getting any younger. Every conversation I have has to have a benefit to me. Has to, okay? It could be monetary. It could be access into something that's monetary. Mm-hmm. It could be access into something that's benefiting a client of mine, of which I'll charge him. It could be someone that's funny at jokes that makes me smile. It's someone that's smarter than me, which is pretty much everyone, that helps me become smarter. It's someone that maybe challenges me. I got friends that some of the banter, you'd almost think, do they like each other? But I'll have a friend going, well, why the bloody hell are you doing that? You know,
right.
what's the thought process behind? He's not saying I can't do it, but he's delving into the reason behind it. And so and I'll come out of a conversation like I've been in 10 rounds with Mayweather. I'll be like, oh my God, was that a night out, or was I just grilled? But everything's going to benefit me. If I'm in a woofy kind of conversation, hi, how are you? Where'd you come from? I'm gone. I'm like a 2-second bailed. I'm out. You know, I want to say, hey, you know, why are you here? How does this benefit you? And you've got to think, and we spoke about this briefly before, when you're focusing on the ROI, that means you've got to put your effort into it. And I'll use a little example as I do when I'm talking on stages. I always show people a lot of the people that I know, you know, the throwing names around, the Bransons, the Musks, Elton John, all of these people, okay? And I show loads of pictures of those. And then I say to people, do you know why I know all of these people? Do you know why I can text every single one of these people? It's because I have these. And I show a picture of a sequoia tree. And then everyone's like, you know, why is he showing a picture of a tree? And then I go to the next slide, which is a seed. Now, the sequoia seed, like every other seed on the planet, is minute. And the bottom line of it is, that's your relationship. Now, if you were given a sequoia tree, and sequoia trees are the biggest trees in the world, they're so powerful, you can cut a hole in them and a bus can drive through up in Yosemite. But if someone gives you that seed, 99% of the time, you're going to ignore it. You're going to put it in your desk, put it in your wallet, put it in your pocket. You're going to put it in so many different places, which is not conducive to it growing, and it will die. But if you focused on it and you put it in the proper kind of soil, proper kind of water, fed it, nurtured it, pruned it, as it broke soil, you protected it, stop it getting trampled on by animals or your pets or whatever. If you put a lot of energy into that in its early stages, you'd end up with something so strong and powerful you wouldn't have to worry about it for years to come.
Right.
And if you think about those friends,
and I'm going to say that, right? Yeah. There's certain friends that we know that years can pass, right? People from college, people from high school or whatever, and you can just pick back up where you left off, right? That giant.
Because you spent all the effort at the beginning, because you grew. Sadly, I'm going to argue that point. Sadly, a lot of people keep friends from places like high school and college and stuff like that because they're familiar. You may not actually like the person, but I knew him from school. People like familiarity. When I meet someone for the first time, I have to make sure for 3 months I'm in that person's face. I'm on that person's mind, okay? If I want a relationship with them, okay?
Well, and let me just clarify that because I think it's important what you're saying. So, because there's also, there's adding value to somebody's life, right? And there's just getting in someone's face and being maybe annoying or like just not, is that a distinction, right? That you're looking to add value to somebody's life and create a relationship that is, an exchange. Is that right?
If someone rewinds back in this podcast, I said that there were two things. What's in it for me,
right,
and what's in it for them.
Right.
Now, at this moment in our conversation, I'm talking about what's in it for me. Okay, so I'm only on one side of the fence at the moment. If my head tells me I want to know that person, I want to work with that person's more intellectual, that person's stimulating, that person's funny, I want to hang out with it. If I've made my decision that I want that person in my world, then the next decision needs to be, what can I put in theirs? What can I bring to the table? Now, it may be that they're in a business that I can offer them some advice. I can offer them a solution. I can challenge them. I can tell them funny jokes. I can bring them an investor. I can bring them clients. What you've got to do now is once you've made the decision, it always starts with your decision. Again, think about you on a plane, plane's about to take off, stewardess stands up and says, in the case of an emergency, the air mask will drop, put it on yourself first. That's the same situation I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
You've got to be the one that makes the conscious decision, I need to have a relationship with that person. Once you've made that conscious decision, then it's a case of, what can I bring to the table that they're going to be excited about? And that's when you start. I said to you that I will spend 3 months being in front of them. I will spend the first 2 weeks of that relationship stalking and trying to find out what I can bring to the table. Now, you could have been at an event. You could phone up the host and you could go, hey, I'm out with Mary. We had a great conversation. She mentioned something about a book or that she was starting a new bakery. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I want to bring some value to the conversation. Mm-hmm. Now, if the host that you're contacting sees how you, and this isn't just a one-time deal. So if I go to a host of a party and I start that conversation, they already know how much I value relationships. They already know that I'm not wasting my time with everyone at the party, that I'm laser focused. So they already know it. So they're like, well, actually, she's got 2 bakeries. The first one actually fell apart, but this one, she's actually specialized in this. Then you can go back and go, hey, Mary, it was nice to meet you the other day, but I've done a bit of stalking on you because I found you really compelling and interesting. Now, understand, everyone says about stalking and they go, well, that's a bit rude. That's a bit invasive.
Right.
Shut up. The bottom line of it is we all know that if we're going to meet someone in a couple of days' time, we Google them. We look them up on Facebook. We look them up. Yeah, exactly. It's of course, everyone kind of go, oh, I don't like that. But as you just said, of course, we do it. Okay.
Well, and you qualified it. You said, because I found you engaging, right? And so
that's right.
And I think what's important, I thought you were going there next, and I know that this is what you're about, it has to be authentic, right? People also don't want to have, there's some people who interact with me who kind of like say all these nice things and blow smoke up my butt, but I don't feel like they really mean it. I feel like they're trying to get something from me. So I think that it's also important that we check in with the energy that we're showing up in and make sure that it's really genuine.
Yeah, you're right 99% of the word, but you came out with one of my hated words, the word authentic. I absolutely hate that word. I do not think I'm authentic, okay? I think I'm transparent. If I come to you and say, hey, I found you so interesting, so compelling that I really wanted to chat with you, I'm being transparent. Now, you just said about these people blowing smoke up your butt, they probably want something from you. We can guarantee you're right. Okay,
right.
What they failed.
I just don't like the way they're doing it because it's not genuine.
Well, if they tweaked it, okay, because everyone loves flattery. They may be good at some of the parts, but I sense the thing that they're missing is they're not bringing the value. If someone's going, hey, you're so wonderful, you're so beautiful, but I've got a tip on how you can make your hair glossier. I got a tip on how you can be taller. Then you're that kind. Oh, okay. Now, yeah, there's an interest, but a lot of people now, they come along, they think flattery, that will get me everywhere. No, people are smarter than that. We're smarter than that now because we're more suspicious than we've ever been. So if you can actually say, again, continuing that kind of, hey, you were so engaging. I loved that. I loved our time together that I actually contacted the host and spoke to Mary about you. And she told me about your two bakeries. If you don't mind, can you tell me why the first one went pop? Because I want to see if there's any nuggets in there that could actually make the next one just go through the roof, And you're bringing some care into it. You're bringing transparency into it because you're asking direct questions. I've gone up to celebrities, famous people. And the first way I start a conversation is, hey, how you doing? My name is Steve Sims. You don't know me. Now, that's bloody obvious.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But the funny thing is, it lowers a barrier because you're stating the obvious. You're getting the elephant out of the room. And then you can follow along with something like, hey, I'm not a stalker, but I do like the charity that you're actually part of. And I came up with a couple of ideas how we can increase the traffic to that. Would that be of interest for us to chat about? You've actually done, now I did that. I ended up working with Sir Elton John for about 8 years. I did this 8 years ago.
Wow.
8 years ago, I did the exact same thing that I'm talking about now. I turned up with an opinion on how they could get more people into the event, and I brought it to the table, and it worked from there. So that's the bottom line. You've got to step up with value. Greg Reed, we mentioned Greg Reed at the beginning of this conversation. Greg would phone me up and he'd just say, he was one of those challenging morons. He would phone up and he would go, why are you doing that, Steve? I'd be like, well, I'll do it. He's like, that sounds great, but what about your energy being here? Or have you thought about this? And I can't meet Greg without Greg turning around and going, hey, brother, are you working on this now? Or how did that go? He wants to know. He actually cares.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the relationship we do. And that's why you can enter into any relationship on the two understandings of, one, do you want it? And then two, what's going to make them want it?
That's really, really powerful, right? And very simple. What's
totally
in it for
simple.
You, what's in it for them? And then add that value.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
You said a lot of interesting things in and around this. So how did you end up, like, we don't know the backstory of you. What made this area of communication being and connecting with celebrities? And one of the things that you do, if I remember correctly from when we met, was you make dreams come true, right? So you organize these like amazing opportunities for people and you find the obscure, right? And so tell us more about that and how and why you decided that was an area for you to specialize in.
Not sure I decided. I think it was one of these things that, the stars aligned. Yeah, it found me and kind of like dragged me through the mud a few times. Like all entrepreneurs, we know more times that we don't fit than we do fit. And I remember as I was growing up as a 15-year-old in England, working for my dad's building site, that I was like, is this it? I've left school early. Now on a building. Is this really life? Because it's not very much fun. And so in the early stages, I got into a lot of, not trouble, but a lot of distress because I bounced from job. I would go to work in the morning for a new job at 9 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, well, that doesn't challenge me. I'm walking off. And I would leave. And my mum was like, oh, you've got ADD, which bearing in mind in the 80s and 90s, they were giving you tablets for. And she's like, you're ADD, you can't settle, blah, blah. And so it was a self-path that my mum just thought, I'm going to go to jail. See, he can't sell, head's all over the place, he's going to get in trouble. I had nothing to challenge me. I had no mentors that I could look at. I had no one that I could go, I want to be that person. As I bounced around the walls, one of the jobs I had was a doorman. And by now, it's a long story short, by now I was actually in Hong Kong because I'd applied for jobs in other countries because I was starting to think, well, maybe it's the country. Maybe just England's got nothing. So I applied for a job in Hong Kong, lasted 1 day, got fired. And then I ended up working on the door and I played a game. It was weird. I played a game because no one talks to the doorman because the doorman's there to punch you in the head. And so everyone's always nice as they come in, but then they get inside, have a couple of beers and get Larry. And I played the game that I would stand there and I would look at how people acted with each other and how they acted with the waiters and the waitresses and the bar staff and everyone else. And I would go, I want to be that person. I want to be that person. And then once I'd kind of like picked who I wanted to be, then I thought, I wonder if I can talk to them. And even at an early age, I knew that I got to bring something to the party. Okay. So as the doorman, you knew what nightclubs were going on in your area. You knew what special celebrities were turning up. You knew what special promo nights were going on. So I walk up to these guys and I go, hey guys, how are you? And at first, I used to get a lot of people looking at me going, hey, we're not in trouble, are we? Did we do something wrong, mate? And I'd be like, hey, no, calm it down. But you guys look as though you're like a good time. On Thursday night, there's a private party being up the road. If it's something of interest, you're the kind of guys that I'm sure they would like there. If you want to go, let me know and I'll see what I can do. And I became an excuse, a reason for them to talk to me. Now I'm having conversations about that nightlife. So I went from party promoter to doing my own parties, to end up working with everyone from the Kentucky Derby, New York Fashion Week, Sir Elton John's Oscar Party, Stade Polo, Formula One in Monaco. It just grew from there, but it always had the same reason behind it.
Right.
I wanted to be able to communicate and associate and circle with affluent, powerful people. Why? Because the classic line, you are the combination of the people you hang around with. All of my friends were broke-ass bikers. And if I could get into a room full of billionaires, then guess what I would end up becoming? So that's how it started. And the funny thing is, this will make you giggle. It doesn't take too many seconds to speak to me to realize that there's nothing that I wouldn't ask for. I'm not embarrassed about asking for what I want.
Right.
I actually told my wife that once I built up this network, I would ask them for a job. The whole concept was that I would be asking them to help me. Never happened. I built my own industry where they needed me more than I needed them.
Smart. So were you ever feeling insecure or, because there's that thing inside all of us, whether we've got it under control or not, but there's this thing, this deep core, we're not enough, right? If we've ever been bullied or had a parent who put us down or, right? So from kids, this either gets bigger or we are able to keep it under control. But did you ever feel that way and feel like, oh, I can't approach them, or were you always on it and just ignoring that inner feeling sometimes?
I wasn't ignoring it, but I was ignorant to it. I didn't recognize it. And the funny thing was that from birth, I've been on motorcycles. And now I live here in Los Angeles. I don't own a car. I haven't owned a car for I think 16 years. I'm always on motorcycles. And when I lived in Asia and when I lived in Switzerland, I always had motorcycles. And so I would turn up to my client and I would turn up, black leather jacket and a crash helmet in my hand and start working with them. Okay. It was just a thing that happened. People used to say, when he turns up, you're going to have somewhere for him to park his bike because he doesn't have a car. People were like, really? Yeah, he doesn't drive cars. So it became my thing that they would always expect me to turn up with a crash helmet. In fact, I remember going to an event that I was asked to actually go to, and I turned up in a car, in a taxi and Uber kind of thing, and they went, oh, we wanted you to walk in with your crash helmet. They went and borrowed a crash helmet from one of the Bell staff so that I could walk in with a crash helmet, so it had the full effect. And I was like, all right. So I didn't.
Does it mess up your hair?
Well, sometimes, but sometimes I just think, to hell with it. That's why it's scruffy today, because it's too early here. But I remember, and again, you don't know when this little bug's going to pop out of your ears. I remember I was 7 years into doing what I was doing. I had already some of the richest, most powerful people in the planet as clients. I was flying around the world, going to stately homes to see clients, heads of governments. It was just crazy times. And then one day I woke up and I went, ooh, I can't keep turning up on a motorcycle. That's stupid. And of course, then it happened. I bought a Ferrari. I bought tailor-made suits. I went out and I bought an expensive Audemars Piguet watch. Okay. All of these things for you. I bought all of these things for you to be impressed with me. I didn't buy a new Ferrari. I bought a 1971 classic. So it was more, I was more of a connoisseur of vintage Ferraris,
Right.
And my suits had waistcoats and stuff. And I really was trying to impress you. Now, the funny thing is, all of this stuff was baggage. All of this stuff was weighing my shoulders down. My wife said that when I talk to people, all of a sudden, like, yes, hello, how are you?
Right. You weren't, your real self wasn't coming out.
No, everything died. Now, luckily, and I'll give it a full story, I threw a party in Monaco, a massive, great yacht, and I was with the Ferrari. And I stepped out of the party, and we moved the Ferrari over to the boat next to me because the boat next to me was bigger than the one that I was throwing the party on. And I got my photograph taken outside of this yacht in this Ferrari. And I had the heads of the heads of the heads on my yacht, okay? But for some reason, even then, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't big enough.
Right.
I went back to my home. And I got the photographs in the post. It was one of those days where you took the roll of film out of your camera, you sent it off, and anywhere within the next 3 years, you got your pictures back. So I remember sitting in my office one day, and I had a penthouse in Geneva. I wasn't doing bad. I had a penthouse in Geneva, and I'm flicking through these photographs of this guy trying to do his best Don Johnson Miami Vice, leaning up against a Ferrari, and I realized I wasn't in these pictures. It wasn't me. Right. It was some jackass that had sold himself to try and impress you. Now, these people had already come to the party because they knew me. They'd already paid good bucks to be there. The deal had already been done. But I had shown up as someone else. I couldn't have looked dumber if I'd have turned up as like some kind of football player mascot with a big furry head on. And it actually upset me enough that I locked the door and I went into a drinking binge for about 3 days. It was a very dark moment of my life. I came out of it. Same day, we put all the suits. Now, funny enough, we put all the suits in the closet because I thought, it's a suit. You never know when you need a suit.
Right.
That was in 1997. I think about 2006, just before the recession, I was living in Palm Beach, and we opened up one of the boxes from our place in Geneva, and I found all of these suits, and they went to Goodwill. So they never got worn again.
Yeah.
The watch actually got hocked because the watch company wouldn't take it back. So I sold the watch. I got rid of everything and went back to who I was. And I was thinking, I will sell anything in the world that benefits you, but I will not sell me.
Yeah.
And that, thankfully, I caught that early. But you're right. I'm a strong guy. I'm a strong mentality. I'm a strong character. And if I want something, I'm gone for it. You know, we've got a British bulldog here. And my wife says that's my spirit animal. Whatever he wants, he just goes for. But no one can ever fight against that little doubt, that little unconfidence, that little insecurity. And sometimes you've got to bring it you've got to bring it out. You've got to sit on the other side of the table and go, all right, and what you got? You know, why should I be insecure? I hadn't asked those questions, and I had to go through that to realize that I didn't need to be picture perfect. I didn't need to be wearing elegant suits. I didn't need to be. Hugh Grant was the big name at the time. I didn't need to be Hugh Grant. I just needed to be me, and I could be me really easily.
So what would you advise people who are caught in that place? For some people, it might have been from youth, and I think it happens for a lot of people. Like what happened for you is it's not always like early on, what the hell, right? You take all these risks and you put yourself out there and you just plow through. And then at some point, like I feel like that was the way with me as well. At some point, it kind of crept up on me, and then I'm like, you know, why all of a sudden? You can't ask me that on my own podcast.
All right, so
no, I'm just kidding. I'm 51. I'm 51. So
all right, when did you look 33?
Well,
so let's get that out of the way. But when did it actually come up to you? When did that doubt come in? What age?
Actually, for me, I lived in Switzerland too, so we have a lot in common. I lived in Zurich, Switzerland, and I built up an IT business, built it up myself and hired people, built it up to a multi-million-dollar business and sold it to a public company. And it was after that I was like, well, even though in my head, I knew that, well, I did it once, I can do it again. But there were all these expectations now that I didn't have before, right? So all of a sudden, I have these expectations of myself, and I believe others have these expectations of me. And then maybe fear or those different types of feelings come up. Like, can I, maybe I'm not good enough. I can't get to the next level. It was a fluke, imposter theory, right? I fell into it. So I think that there's a lot of people that experience it also after an initial success, and not only before. Like you said, I think that it's a common thing. What would you advise people to? I know you said you went into it and you asked yourself some questions. Is there like a specific question that really shifted you, or do you have a great metaphor? I love your metaphors so far, because they cut right to the chase in our brain too, right? Our brain, then our conscious mind can't block that metaphor to go right in and break up some of that like BS that we're telling ourselves.
The danger, first of all, is you think it's something that's dedicated to the youth. You think that insecurity and instability and not knowing what's going to go on with my life, you think that's something you only get when you're 17 and 18 years old. And the funny thing is, and in both of our examples, they both crept in during and after great success.
Yeah.
So we had already established ourselves as very good, and then we had doubt. So it's weird that you get that kind of similarity there. But what you got to understand is it's there. I think the first thing you've got to do, and I try to detect it when I'm working with my people now, is you've got to be aware that it's there. You know, you go around a corner expecting the road to be a little bit rough. You expect things to happen. You expect there to be a pothole when you go around a blind corner. If it's not there, great. If it is there, you're prepared for it. So you've got to understand and just recognize that self-doubt is 9 times out of 10 inside of us.
Oh, yeah.
So once you've recognized, hey, it's in there. I may not see it yet, but one day it may rear its head. You can start preparing yourself. And I found since, and it's great to sit here and go, well, I went through it. It cut me to the core. It nearly ruined my relationship with my wife and my kids and everyone. So it hurts. But you can recognize it now. You can recognize the telltale signs. And that is when you start questioning yourself. And the trouble is, when you're questioning yourself because of that doubt, you're only questioning yourself on one side of the argument. Am I good enough? Am I good looking enough? Am I smart enough? Can I do this? Wrong. The other side then needs to step up and go, well, why can't I? Well, hang on a minute. It's been working so far. Sure. Does it matter about my height, seeing as I've already built this business? You know, you've got to start bringing the other partner to the argument.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I agree with that. You know, I used to work with Tony Robbins. I was a coach for Tony Robbins. And one of the methods that he uses that we would work with people all over the world is exactly that. Like if you're blaming somebody, well, look at the other side and blame them, not just for what they did to you, but what you got from it, like how it changed you and made you better, right? And it weighs things out for you to you have to see all perspectives before you can take it in and decide what you're going to give, what meaning you're going to give it. Yep. So I think that's a great advice. And something struck me, and then I know that we could talk forever. I'm loving chatting with you, but we're going to have to bring our session to a close. But you mentioned something earlier that you played a game while you were at the door, right? You were playing a game. And I think what struck me as we were just talking is that at some point when it becomes too serious and we're not gaming it anymore, like playfully, joyfully, like working it in that way, it becomes too serious. And that, I think, for me is maybe when the doubt crept in, is when I took it too seriously. I took myself too seriously, the circumstances too seriously. I'm not saying that we should make light of everything, but there's, again, it's in that perspective, I think.
The trouble is, and I'm going to quote something, and you were saying about metaphors. My wife says that my education has come from metaphors and quips. I don't like to read long dialogue. I love those little impactful things. We can gather impact and those quips from the strangest places. There was, and I don't know if you'll remember this, I was watching a movie one day, and I was a young lad. And in this movie, there was this famous scene, and they were about to do a bank robbery. Okay, it was typical. Well, I'll say it was a typical. It is probably one of the most typical men movies, big bro kind of movies out there. And in the bus, and I'll leave it because I'm wondering how many people listening to this will go, I know that movie.
I already know what it is, I think.
There's this guy called Bodie, and he turns around at Johnny Utah, and he says, fear causes hesitation, and hesitation will cause your worst fears to come true. Mm. And I was watching this movie as a lad with what I'm thankful now is my wife. And I was sat there and I was like, oh, and I missed the rest of the movie because this had hit me so much that it wasn't the fear that creates the problem. It was the hesitation. Now we're in a coronavirus pandemic at the moment. Coronavirus is not the problem because they're fighting it. They've got intelligent people working it. It's the idiots that are buying toilet roll and just killing the shelves, and the pandemic of stupidity that is going to be the aftermath problem.
Yeah.
Because you can guarantee they're going to find a cure for this. We're going to find a vaccine. Yeah. We're going to get over this. But we're not going to get over stupidity. So the problem is, I think what we've got to do is recognize that fear itself actually is never usually the problem. And funny enough, people don't always recognize fear. Fear, you can play with fear. I ride motorcycles. I used to fight kickboxing. When I used to step into the ring, or now when I'm on a motorcycle and before the green light goes, every molecule of my body is alive. I'm terrified and excited and thrilled and pumped. It's that moment when you come alive. Now, entrepreneurs, like now again, I've seen some dynamic, creative entrepreneurs now because they've gone, right, green light's just about to go, I've got to get ready. And I've noticed that people have to recognize it. But the fear should never be the problem. It should be the fuel. And I think you have to giggle, and we joke about this in my family, we have to giggle about what we get away with, okay?
I like that.
We're sitting here at the moment, drinking our old fashions, having conversations all over the world via Zoom, closing deals, and none of that was ever taught to us at school or at college. Like I left school at the age of 15 years old, and I've lectured in Harvard twice, okay? Both times I went in there, it was only 2 times I went there, but I remember the first time going in there going, this is absurd. And then when they invited me back a second time, I went, are you serious? You want me to come in? They were like, yeah, we'd like to, what? You know, so you've got to be able to have a big smirk with what you get away with. Entrepreneurs are there to challenge and to see what fun they can have along the way.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great place for us to end it. And thank you so much for our conversation has gone in a lot of different directions and so many nuggets in your wise words.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for being here. And if you didn't catch it, go and listen again, because sometimes it's not in the first time that you listen to something that you catch, like Steve did, that one quote. And, I'd love to hear, I knew right as you were telling the story, the big bank robbery, I knew exactly which movie you were talking about, but I'm not going to say what it is. For those of you who are listening, I want you to go ahead and, where this is posted, post it and let us know if you know what that movie is, and we'll keep you in suspense on that. So thank you all for being here. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.